have to be your biggest fan.
Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Ada Canada. My name is Nikki. If this is your first time coming on my channel or if you're a returning subscriber, hi, welcome. And I do hope you stick around to the end. We're back with another one of my series where I try to get people on my channel, well, immigrants like myself on my channel to talk about their experiences and their field and just generally how they've been doing things that have been working well for them in Canada and probably share some tips about immigrating to Canada, share what worked best for them or what didn't work. Today, I have a special guest, Francis. Unfortunately, we're not in the same province, so we can't do this physically, but at least we'll make do with what we have. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Adar. It's certainly a pleasure to join you here today on this video. And very delighted to connect with your YouTube subscribers on this very pertinent, important conversation around policy, around Canada, and around many other important things that needs to be covered during this session of this video. My name is Francis Okbalike, and sometimes I get to be called Dr. Francis, and that's because, you know, my journey into the policy space started many years ago when I was an undergraduate in the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where I majored in political science. And I had the chance to finish with a first class honors. And that naturally was the basis that spurred my interest into a deeper incursion into the policy space. I had a real chance to move on from there after graduating to work in Abuja. I had some very interesting stints with certain different government agencies while up in Abuja, and this was very important policy work. And up until then, I had also a very real chance to get a scholarship afterwards to go to the UK for my master's. And after my master's, I also had a real chance to do some policy work in Manchester, UK for a while. And after my master's, interestingly, I also had a real chance to also traveled to New Zealand, where I secured a PhD scholarship. And while there, I had a chance to be a policy and research manager for a time spanning 2.5 years. And currently, right now, I'm in Canada as we speak. And I'm also working in the policy space as a senior policy analyst with a government agency by and large. But most importantly, that has been my rodeo in the policy space, and that has been my passion, and that has been one of my most important motivation to say, hey, look, if I've seen what's going on in the real, in the cold face of the work, in the front lines, and I can see not a lot of people are really kind of putting their hands up to really step up into the policy space. Why not, if not, to bring that to the fore, to the conversation? And that's why I said a yes when I done knocked on my doors for us to have this tete-a-tete live on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on my channel. I felt like you would be a very good match because A, it's hard getting people to actually come and talk about their experiences and their journey. And B, most of the people that I've brought on my channel are people who are sciences inclined. Like I brought an engineer, I brought someone in agriculture. I talk about myself and I'm also science inclined. I've got comments on certain videos where people ask questions about arts or social sciences. It kind of made me realize that, okay, like I push science related things a lot and I'm in a science domain, but what about those people who are in social sciences or arts that are not necessarily interested in switching over to science? So that was why I was like, okay, you probably will be a perfect match since you moved to Canada. Your story is quite unique because you've been out before you came to Canada. So it's not like you just from Canada, like from Nigeria, stepped into Canada. Obviously, you've had a wealth of experience with being in the UK, with working in, first of all, in Nigeria, in the UK, and then in New Zealand, and then here in Canada. So I wanted to ask, what made you choose Canada? Like after living in all these places that are also very favorable to immigrants, why did you choose to come to Canada?
Yeah, thank you, Ada. Look, before I even go to that question, I thought it was pertinent to just add back to the conversation in terms of why we not bring social science to the fore. As a matter of fact, like if you see a lot of YouTube videos, not a lot of people talk about the opportunities in the social science domain. It is made to look like or made to appear like social sciences is not a place where you can find job fulfillment, a clear career path that is satisfying, that's also rewarding as well. So I saw that as a lacuna, and I thought it was imperative that at least this gets spoken into. People need to understand that the degree they acquired in Nigeria, they acquired from every other universities, it's not balderdash, it's not trash, it's very useful, it finds relevance when you come overseas. There are a number of organizations that are very keen to work with what you have, the knowledge base you have, that you've acquired in Nigeria, and all those things really matter. So I know right now there is a very high uptake in tech courses. People want to do micro credentials around tech, but not a lot of people are also paying attention in terms of what's also happening in the policy domain and how they can really take advantage of what opportunities and career paths, of course, is laid out for them there. But going back to your question, why Canada? That question is layered. Naturally, coming to Canada came on the backdrop of my permanent residency. When that was approved, I just felt, why not if not? So there was a bandwagon I had to just follow. Look, everyone is doing it. But much more, I found that when I did a scan of the opportunities in Canada, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of policy work going in the provincial governments, at the central government level, or the federal government level in Canada. I'm like, why not if not? So the choice of Canada, besides my permanent residency, when that was secured and then when that was gotten in the back, I saw a lot of career opportunities that can make my career more tentaculous, that can give me that oomph to grow in the path I really want. And coming here less than a month after my permanent residency, I had more than 5 job offers. I had the privy to select which one I wanted to take on, and that's how lucrative I really found it. And of course, till I settled for this one, I'm really in at the moment, and I found that very interesting. So Canada for me is a place where there's a lot of opportunities, with a lot of immigrants coming through, with the government expanding its economic base, its policy base, and expanding continuously on all fronts through its economic development plan. Canada just felt like the right go-to to knock on the doors and take advantage of opportunities there. And so that's why I chose to come to Canada, despite the fact that I've had a real chance to live in other countries and across different continents of the world at the moment.
All right. That's good. I'm glad that there are still opportunities in Canada for social sciences, despite everything that's going on and this whole tech STEM wave that's been going on for a while. I feel like this video is going to have 2 parts. It's going to have like the actual social sciences parts, the policy parts, which is your field, which we're going to come to. But first, just like a couple of questions about your journey to Canada. And I'm saying this just based on the kind of content that I put out there. I know how your process was like, but if you could maybe like briefly give us the full gist, like how was the entire immigration process? Give us timelines, give us dates. This is for those subscribers out there that are not necessarily interested in moving to Canada via education, but just want to like try the PR route, even if you're not already in the abroad, if you're already in Nigeria, right? So talk to us about that.
Also, a very interesting question. Like, I've had a chance to rethink, recap, and to reflect on my journey of securing a permanent residency in Canada. And my journey is such that it started about 3 years ago, if I'm correct. I went through the express entry pathway. I came in as a federal skilled worker, and that was where, like 3 years ago, it was still a very general pool. There's no category-based pool, there's no tech-based pool and the like. So it was just a very wide spectrum that invited everyone across board to apply for permanent residency. So my humble self, I saw the opportunity as something I could really tap into. And what really informed that was I came to University of British Columbia for a conference. And while I was at the conference, I saw a lot of young people presenting, and many of them that had a chance to have a confabulation with. They did say they were permanent residents, I beg your pardon. A couple of them said they were citizens. And I told myself, if they can have it, why can't I have it?
So you already visited Canada before you even became a PR?
Yeah, that's correct. Look, before I visited, like I have this thing to always travel. I think Canada was my country number 45 or thereabout. I was not sure when I was doing the Ajala thing, but I think either 40 or 45. I'm not so sure, but the number is 54 right now. But I did visit Canada because there's always been my desire to cover the entirety of North America. So I had a chance during my PhD to come to Canada to present at a conference in UBC, way in Vancouver. And while I was there, I saw a lot of young people. I'm like, this place is definitely for me. This is where I want to be. And this is where I want to have permanent residency, in this country. And the moment I came back, immediately, June 2019, did my WHS, did my IELTS. I think I scored 8.5 in the IELTS. So that really kind of boosted my score. And I think once I got that all sorted, I had a real chance to apply. And 2 months after, I sadly got a notification that I had a rejection. And the rejection was nothing other than the fact that I forgot to put my rights police certificate in the part of my document. I reached out to IRCC and I pleaded with them, hey, look, this is the right police certificate. I put the empty file because of the naming convention. I used to name the file and I sent it to all the emails I could, but they all came back saying it's too late. IRCC has a low tolerance for mistakes when it comes to permanent residency applications.
I know, and I always preach this. Not even permanent residency, anything regarding immigration, they don't have the patience if you make a mistake at all.
You know, one thing, I know this might not really be a lot of, might not really kind of crossover, but I've had a rejection. Canada was one of my first visa rejections
Are
I've
you
ever received.
serious?
Telling
Wow.
you, Canada gave me my first
Was
visa
that like
refusal
when
as
you
a
were
visitor.
still like as a visitor? This
As
was
a visitor.
this was before BC, and you still applied again and still got into
Yes.
BC. Wow.
So what I did that was very helpful was when I applied, I was in the UK studying for my master's degree, and I'm like, you know what, I need to start traveling. My goal then was to travel to America. So I got my US visa, and I'm like, let me try Canada. Like, that ginger you get the moment you get one big visa, and you feel like, what, let me get the next big one. So I applied. I even got a letter of support from the university, and they still said I don't have sufficient reason to go back. And that was the basis for refusal. However, I refused to give up. And I
That's
went
like
back.
two rejections. I think we're in the same boat here because I've had two rejections, and even I was in Canada when I was rejected twice. But third time is a charm, right? That's two
Yeah, absolutely.
rejections before PR. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, but I went back, like when I was applying again, the kind of documents I used to apply. So I was coming for a conference. UBC was my entry into Canada, right? I
Yeah.
provided every document you can imagine, my conference paper, my conference invite, the travel grant I received, everything I packed onto Canada, and they had no reason to reject it. So for me, that was, if I think back to that moment, I'm like, that's really amazing, from rejection to acceptance. So now that's a second rejection. So I felt shattered. For a minute, I felt, is Canada for me or maybe not for me no more? I was rejected in the first instance, I got it back, and I was now rejected again for permanent residency. But then again, one thing I did tell myself is if I was able to spring back up from the first rejection, I can actually spring back up to get, the Canada permanent residency on the way. And while I was deflated, while my emotions were in an all-time low, I started knocking on the doors of provisional nomination. And the reason why I had to go through that route was simply because after the rejection, my birthday happened 7 days after, November the 10th. And my scores went from, I think, 428 to 422. The cutoff then was 425 or thereabout, or 426, and I lost that. I couldn't do French. I couldn't do any other courses that will actually boost my score. And that's why I went through PNP and PNP, Saskatchewan PNP. And like they say, the rest is history. I got 600 points. From the 600 points, boom, my scores boosted back to 1,000 plus. And here I am.
Can I ask the Saskatchewan PNP? It's over 100. What did you score for them to accept you into their PNP? Yeah, I'm sure it was more than 80, right? Was it more than 90?
The good thing then is the minimum cutoff for Saskatchewan PNP as at that time was 63. That's the minimum you needed.
Okay.
However, the invitations they were sending out were you needed to have scored 69. And I was so fortunate. I got 70 on the dot.
Just like
And
1 point.
just 1 point. And the beautiful thing, I still came in through the professor category. And after the nomination, Saskatchewan stopped nominating professors for provisional nomination or for selecting them in their stream. There's one thing about time and seasons, right? A number of people need to be aware of it. You need to be aware of the time, and you need to be aware of the season. Once it is a certain time for you to do a certain thing, it is imperative for you to take concerted action to really get onto that thing before it's late. And I always say this to people, and I always say it again. Canada is open now, but the matter is, in long-term prognostications, Canada may not be as open as it would be. And that's just the honesty in all of this. While I say it's not going to be open, let's say in the next 20 years or thereabout. We've seen that in America where there's a policy change. We've seen that in the UK when a change in government means a change in immigration policy. So the truth of the matter is, let's this information that people are getting be the catalyst for them to look out for what opportunities are out there that can actually give them that leverage, the opportunity to knock on these doors and get in. I'll tell you one thing, if I had waited 2 months later than I did, I won't be able to come in, and that's the truth. And right now, age is a factor that has a compounding effect. It brings down your scores and it limits your chances of getting in. And the more you get closer to 40, just forget it. It makes the chances harder. So the truth of the matter is, if people are really encouraged by way of permanent residency, by way of applying for Atlantic immigration programs, which are really out there in abundance, and not a lot of people are aware of the avalanche of opportunities. Look out there. Like, I've been to 9 out of the 10 provinces in Canada. There are opportunities people can actually take advantage of.
But then, like, everybody wants to go to Ontario, everybody wants to come to Alberta and BC, and it's making those places these places so overpopulated, and then the standard of living is rising. But you're forgetting about Prince Edward Islands, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, like all of these provinces that need people, right? You're forgetting about, well, there's Saskatchewan there, there's Manitoba there. It all depends on what you're looking for. I do try to tell my subscribers to be open and proactive, and I'm glad that I have people who are like backing me up. So guys, I keep singing it. I will forever continue to sing it for as long as I continue to make study related videos or immigrating to Canada videos. You have to be proactive, you have to be open, and you have to actually learn to do things for yourself. If you really want to come to Canada, you have to put in the work for yourself.
Absolutely, Ada. Absolutely.
We've already kind of answered multiple questions in one, so just kind of move forward to the next one. You've been in Canada for a year now. So how is it like should I still call you a newbie? No, I don't think I'll call you. Well, I mean, you're still relatively new, so that's fine. How is the experience like? You mentioned getting 5 different job offers within a space of 2 months.
1 month, 2 months.
1 month, 2 months. Like, how is that like for you? Do you like Canada now? What are the things that you like? What are the things you don't like? How did you find settling into Canada, just landing and then boom, you didn't even have to like waste so much time getting a job? What's your experience like?
And thank you very much. I think I've always had a very curiosity that always piques my interest. I think there's something I've noticed. There's what we call the hiring season, where most employers are really very keen to pick up people, and that's towards the last quarter of the year and the beginning of the year as well. Most employers are tilting towards having people and getting them in. So 1 year in Canada, I kind of had prior information, how to structure my CV accordingly, how to package my skills.
Emphasize on prior information.
Prior.
You found yourself, right? Like you did the work in terms of like figuring out how do you tailor your CV to Canadian standards so that you appear hireable. Okay. I just wanted to emphasize that one out.
Absolutely. And one thing I actually did was I did what we call a skill mapping. So you can use a skill mapping tool on Indeed, Workopolis, Seek, to actually find what are my skill sets. And because one thing I do notice, a certain job might have a different naming convention in a different country. So for example, what people might call, this is a policy advisor. Some country might actually toe the line of calling them policy and community engagement advisor. So people have different naming conventions to get things done. So I needed to understand what's the naming convention for the skill set I bring to the table. And that was very easy to structure my CV accordingly so that whenever the computer or whatever the employer picks up my CV, it knows I have the skill set to actually kind of work in that space. So it was kind of very easy, for I think prospective employers to look through a scan through of their list. Like I always say, they only look at your CV for maximum 20 to 30 seconds to see whether the right things are there before they decide whether you're, eligible for an interview or a first phase conversation. However, I think that was really very helpful. Planning was very strategic for me. Planning in terms of what is in Canada, what am I really coming into, where's the province I'm coming from, what does remote work look like, what does hybrid look like, and what does working from the office full-time look like. I think those critical investigations prior really helped me to kind of determine how I really want to navigate the domain. Where are the jobs at? There's policy job everywhere. Of course, there are certain provinces that have different kind of jobs, and some of them offer remote positions. And I'm like, you know what? I want to pay attention to certain things. For example, in Saskatchewan, if you want to come in as a policy advisor in the domain of agriculture will have a very big traction. Likewise, if you're coming in, you can also look into the domain of climate change. For example, that we have a lot of uptake because government would like to engage you if we have solid knowledge and understanding of how that really works. So I think that was really very important, prior preparation. The second one was I've had a prior experience traveling, so that was really very helpful. So I wasn't really nervous about, coming to Canada. I felt like, you know what, it's just a continuum of some sort. But nonetheless, if I look back in the last 1 year and ask myself, what has worked? What has not worked? What has been fantastic and what has been not so flashy? I'll start with the good before I go to the ones I feel are not so good. For the good parts, I've really enjoyed a very diverse space. Canada offers avalanche of opportunities. I know there's no perfect abroad setting. There are definitely some lacunas, some things you will see, but that is just likewise with everywhere you go to. So you have to make up your mind that you're on the balance of probabilities. You have to accept what's best for you. You have to accept what's tenable and accept your reality and configure it accordingly to what you're saying. So what has really worked for me is just the opportunity it provides, which has been very helpful. I've met a lot of Nigerians, so there's an expansion of culture compared to New Zealand, for instance. You don't see a lot of Nigerians. Well, yeah, I've had a chance to be part of the Igbo community, Yoruba community. And I've seen lots and lots of Nigerians in all the provinces I've been to. I think that was really fantastic for me. And secondly, Canada is very proximal to the States. So I've had a chance to always run away and go to the States for
There's
weekends
something
and
about the
enjoy.
States. There's something about the States that makes everybody want to just be like, please, can I just go and just get fresh
I'm telling you.
come back?
And again, you get fantastic flight deals, right? If you're an Ajala like myself, it's very easy to fly from here to Mexico, from Toronto, just travel around and explore, just the entirety of what Canada has to offer. I particularly feel that summer in Canada is beautiful. I think it's nice. And I just feel like it's a very good place where you can grow and thrive. So I think that's really nice. It's a place where I've really come to enjoy. I kind of enjoy it. So I kind of like how things are really spaced out. And 1 year so far has been very fascinating. And do I like it here? I absolutely like it here. For the not so good, I think these things are really kind of common with what we're seeing right now with the rising cost of living. There's a very big bias in Canada that that's going to be a major issue for those people that are really coming in. The cost of living is a little bit of a big bite, and that's simply because if you're earning the minimum wage, it might not be enough. Your take home might not be able to take you home, so it means there'll be a bit of cash crunch in some days. But nonetheless, I did write a post one time where I mentioned the different phases of coming abroad. There is the lack phase where it seems like everything is gonna, crash on you, where you feel like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do it no more. But it's just the lack phase, right? It's just a stage where all the forces are really, converging and they are saying, you know what, you can't go any step further. But then again, naturally, you will exit that stage. It all gives a timeline of 0 to 2 years or less, depending on if you're a student or a permanent resident or now you're coming in. Then, of course, there's the steady phase where you have the real chance to really kind of spring up. You get a better job, better experience. You've gotten a lease of life with a better job that pays more than the minimum wage, and things are looking better. Then ultimately to the acceleration phase, where you're now on cruise control, buy a property, have a car, have greater control of your circumstances. And of course, the truth of the matter is there is no one size fits all in terms of how people navigate this. But the truth of the matter is, if you're coming in, there's that crunch phase you will feel at the beginning. Cost of living will be something that will knock on your doors. And again, I can't trade away the fact that Canada's winter could be very cold. If you're in Saskatchewan, if you're in the prairies, like we call it Saskatchewan, prairies is just Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. I think those are the three provinces of the prairies. And the winter in these places are very, very cold. And I think it's just the second worst after the territories, Nunavut, Yukon, and Northwest Territories. But being in the prairies, we never look forward to the cold. We don't anticipate winter. No
No,
one likes it. Other than that, like,
nobody.
no one likes it. They're like, but eventually you get used to it, right? You get acclimated to the circumstance. Think about it this way. If not for anything, you can take fine pictures during the winter. You experience white
Now
Christmas.
start freezing and you just become numb.
I'm telling you, look, to be
Don't take
honest,
pictures. You can only take pictures when it's like -5, -10,
yeah.
like -15, -20, -30. Please don't.
No. You can run out real quick. Like for example, there's a bit of sun, and everything looks good. There's snow on the trees and all. You can easily just come out 10 seconds, quickly, and take some snapshot. But look, if life serves you lemon,
Make
just it's
lemonade.
life serves you lime, just make lemon juice out of it. But eventually winter always goes away and the bright will always come. Think about it this way. If you think about Canada, think about long term, not the short term, right? The passage of time will mellow viewpoints. Quality is remembered long after the prize has been forgotten. The truth of the matter, think about the opportunity it offers you for a better life. A better life here means job security. A better life here means social security. It means for those that are planning to have kids, it means their children can school for free without worrying. There's also the opportunity to save into your children's future with RESP, Registered Education Savings Plan. A lot of things you can really take advantage of. And think about it, if you ultimately get a passport, that is just a ticket to the world, really. And you can just go to as many countries as you can, many of them visa free. And I think these are the perks that you can actually hold on to when you think about Canada in the long term.
Okay. Do you feel like your experience also added to your strengths in coming to Canada and being able to find a job in that very short amount of time without having to wait too long? I know everybody's experience is different. You've moved, you've done a lot of things. You're even a professor. I used to be a professor.
No, I kind of pivoted
Okay,
from the
but
profession to
like you were a professor at the time before you moved. So do you feel like your experience played a very big role in helping you move to Canada and also navigating and settling in easily, I would say?
Yeah, look, that's a very important question, and I want to re-echo something you just said earlier. We'll all have different stories, right? The journey of 1,000 miles will definitely start with a step, but what looks like a step for one person will look different for another person. So I thought I'd caveat that. But for me, ultimately, my experience did help. My experience working overseas in the UK, in Nigeria, and ultimately working in New Zealand. All those things cumulatively were really, very helpful because you can't single out the fact that if someone sees that you have relevant overseas experience, let me underline the word relevance, because what people call relevance will actually be based on jurisdiction. So if you might consider my skill sets relevant if it is in certain jurisdiction that has similarities or intersection with the Canadian work setting. For instance, you can't jettison the fact that policy work in New Zealand have some copious resemblance with what goes on in Canada. And that might actually mean actually have to yank off that requirement of saying you need a Canadian work experience. So I can't really weigh that singular fact that was very helpful. But then again, you can actually have everything right and the right experience. But if you're not well packaged, if you don't know how to speak up in an interview, if you don't know how to own space, if you don't know how to make your impact felt in the interview session. And another thing again, when you think about interviews in Canada, you also have to write the written work component. Interviewers are not just satisfied that you're eloquent in the interview. What does the written exercise look like when you pass that on to them? Does it actually showcase what you are able to articulate? And so all those things were really very helpful. And I think the more and more you do them, the more and more you have your failures and your lessons from all those experiences with interview and with each writing exercise you've been given, the more and more you sharpen your experience to get better. So for me, that's just been a total learning curve. That's been very helpful for me to really kind of break into the Canadian work setting. And it has been a very beautiful journey so far. And I'm very confident that if any of your subscriber or anyone getting this is thinking about getting into the workspace proper and fully, they shouldn't be demotivated. If they knock on certain doors and it doesn't open, the thing you have to ask yourself is how much longer do I knock? How do I structure my CV? Every rejection is an opportunity to reevaluate and ask oneself, how can I do this better? How can I structure my CV better? How can I package myself better to get it right? And I think till you get it, you don't stop knocking. And I always tell people if this is very helpful, it's not okay to just apply to 10 job applications and just press post. Apply voraciously, 50, 60, as much as you can in a month till you get that one yes. You only need one yes to get things started. But when you get that one yes and you get the required work experience, don't stop there. After you've gotten the experience, while you're there, micro credential up. Micro credential means get soft skills, the requisite skills, and look where elsewhere, where your skill set will sell higher. I think I'll end with this. Sell your brain and browse to the highest bidder. But for you to have the brain and browse, it means you need to improve on yourself. And then, of course, the browse also means you also have to believe in yourself enough to step up into higher places so you can take up space where it matters.
Okay, nice. Thank you very much for that.
Stay